The next is waves. So waves is related to simple harmonic motion, but before writing the equation and mathematical thing, just tell me what is wave?
So wave is a propagation of a disturbance.
Mm, okay, just name any type of wave. Mention any one type of wave.
So waves in the ocean.
Waves in ocean. Okay. That's not exactly a wave. Any other example?
Longitudinal wave.
Longitudinal wave. Okay, that's basically a type of wave motion. Okay, have you heard about sound wave,
Yes, sir.
light wave,
Yes, sir.
light wave,
Yes, sir.
wave that develop in a string? If this is a string, I disturb this string, a wave will develop in the string. So wave is basically whenever you think of a wave, think of sound wave. Sound wave means an energy is traveling from source to the listener. That's it. If you have a speaker, a laptop speaker, some sound energy is coming from the laptop speaker. So that sound energy is traveling from that laptop speaker to your eardrum. So the energy that is traveling from the speaker of your laptop to the eardrum is basically your sound energy. So wave is nothing but the transfer of energy from one body to from one point to another. So wave is transfer of energy. There's one more thing about wave motion, and that is during this transfer of energy, there is no transfer of medium. Means when sound energy travels from speaker to your ear, there is no net movement of any medium from the speaker to the ear. When I say that a wave set up in the string doesn't mean that spring is moving in any direction. String is at its own position. String is not moving. It's not moving in the forward or the backward direction. There is no transfer of medium or any particle from one end of the string to the another end. But yes, yet the wave travel from one end to the another end. So wave is transfer of energy without transfer of medium. Without transfer of medium. So this is wave. Why I said that the waves in an ocean is not an exact example of wave. It's because when a wave in an ocean travel, Noor, is there any transfer of particle or not? Yes or no?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, there is a transfer of water molecule. Water waves are nothing but the water particles. They are moving. So if there is a transfer of medium, then there is no wave. Wave means no transfer of medium. We call the something which is developed in the ocean as wave just because the shape of waves is this, and something which is in the ocean also have this shape. That's why we call this as wave, but that's not an exact wave. The wave that we study in physics is energy transfer without transfer of medium. If you have a bulb in front of you, then light waves are traveling from bulb to your eyes, but there is no transfer of medium in between. That's a wave. Some examples of waves: sound wave, light wave. Okay, just tell me one more thing. Sania, can sound travel through vacuum or it need a medium to travel?
It need a medium to travel.
Okay, it need a medium to travel. Very good. Sound cannot travel in vacuum. So you have two types of wave. One wave which needs medium to travel. The example is sound wave. Sound cannot travel without medium. Like if some blast happens on the surface of inside sun, then that sound cannot travel from sun to earth because between sun and earth there is no medium, not even air. It's perfect vacuum. Vacuum means no medium between them. But you are continuously getting light from sun to earth, right? So that means light can travel without medium. So you have two types of wave. One is mechanical wave, which need medium to travel. Another is electromagnetic wave. It does not need any medium to travel. It can even travel through vacuum. The example is light wave. Here, the example is sound wave. Here, the example is light wave. So when we study wave motion, then and one more thing, I'm doing mechanical wave. Okay, we are studying mechanical waves only, the waves which need medium to propagate. We are not studying electromagnetic waves. So whatever theory we do, whatever statements I give, these are for mechanical waves only. Mechanical waves are waves which need medium to propagate. So when you talk about a mechanical wave, you came across two types of displacement. One is the displacement of wave, and another is the displacement due to the oscillation of particles. Like if you take an example of, so basically two types of displacement. Wave motion have two types of displacement. Two types of displacement. One is displacement of wave. Displacement of wave. Displacement of wave basically due to change in position of or displacement of wave. Second, another is displacement of particles of medium. Displacement of particles of medium. This displacement is basically oscillatory. So when a wave passes through a medium, and if that wave is mechanical wave, then then you will have two types of displacement. One is simply the displacement of the wave, and another is the displacement of the particles of the medium. For example, let's take the case of the sound wave. Let's discuss the case of the sound wave. So you have this box. Inside this box, there are air molecules. Huh? All over the box, there are air molecules. You can take this as a box or a room. These are air molecules. These air molecules are at rest. Or you can say that these air molecules are vibrating about its mean position. Now you put a speaker here. This is a speaker. Sound waves are passing through the speaker. So what will happen is, when you put a speaker here, so the air molecules near this speaker will start vibrating with a greater amplitude. Like earlier, if this was the amplitude of particles, air molecules, after putting speaker, this is the amplitude of vibration of air molecule. Amplitude have increases. This amplitude have increased. This is the amplitude of vibration of air molecule. This amplitude have increased. So what happens? These molecules start vibrating about its mean position with a greater amplitude. So there is one displacement, which is the displacement of particles of the medium. Although this displacement is not this displacement is not like this molecule is traveling up to here. The molecule is just vibrating about its mean position. This is one displacement. The another displacement is the displacement of wave. This
sound wave is traveling from the speaker to the listener. If there is a listener here, then the sound waves are traveling from the speaker to the listener through the medium. So we have two types of displacement. One is the displacement of the wave. Another is the displacement of the air molecules. These air molecules are vibrating, so there is one displacement of air molecule. So these are the two types of displacement that you will encounter in a wave motion. The displacement due to oscillation of particles of the medium, and the second displacement is the displacement of the wave. Now, depending upon the angle between these two displacements, you can say that your wave motion is transverse or longitudinal. If the displacement of the particles and the displacement of the wave are in same direction, then you will say that your wave motion is uh, transverse. Sorry, it's longitudinal. If the displacement of particles and displacement of wave are in same direction, then you would say that your wave motion is longitudinal. But if displacement of particles and displacement of wave are perpendicular to each other, if these two displacements are perpendicular, then you will say that wave motion is transverse wave motion. So we have types of wave motion. We have types of wave motion. Two types of wave motion. One is transverse. Another is longitudinal. So transverse and longitudinal are not two different types of waves. They're basically two different types of wave motion. So let's see, what do you mean by transverse wave motion? Transverse wave motion. In transverse wave motion, both the displacements, means displacement of particle and displacement of wave, are perpendicular to each other. In transverse wave motion, displacement of particles and wave are perpendicular to each other. So the examples of transverse wave motion are, the first one is wave developed in a string. This is an example of transverse wave motion. There is one more example that we will not study in class 11, that's electromagnetic wave. Electromagnetic waves are also transverse in nature, but we won't study electromagnetic wave in class 11. This is in class 12 syllabus. So I'm just giving an example of wave in string. Say I take this string. This is a rigid support, maybe a wall. I connected the string to the wall and I give a jerk to the string. I just give a small jerk to the string. So what happen is, this jerk will travel in the forward direction. This will travel like this. So if you say these are the particles of the string, all the particles of the string initially are at this line. These are the positions of the particles of the string before I provide jerk here. But once I disturb this string, this goes like, I provide a jerk in the string, and that jerk is traveling in this direction. So that jerk is basically the energy, the wave that I have provided to the string. A simple thing, you take a string, connect it to the wall and just provide a jerk over the string. And that jerk will travel through the string from one end to the other end. Sania, can you tell me in which direction this jerk is traveling? It's traveling along x-axis, y-axis, z-axis. Where is it? Where is this jerk
X-axis.
traveling? X-axis. That jerk is basically your wave. That is your string wave. So your wave is traveling along x-axis. Very good. Noor, can you tell me the direction in which the molecules or the particles of the string are moving? Are these particles moving in this direction? See this molecule, this particle of the string, which was initially over this horizontal line, it goes over here. This particle goes over here. This goes over here. This goes over here. This goes over here. So this is these points basically shows particles on the string. Yes, Noor, can you tell me what is the direction of displacement of the particles of string? Are they moving along x-axis, y-axis, or z-axis?
Y-axis.
Y-axis, very good. So particles are moving along y-axis. So see, both the displacements are perpendicular. This particle is not going up to here. When you give a jerk to the string, it doesn't happen that this end of the string goes to this end. The end which is in your hand remain in your hand. That means the molecules are not going along x-axis, they are just vibrating along y-axis. So direction of propagation of wave and the oscillation of particle here are perpendicular to each other. So you call this wave motion as the transverse wave motion. This is your transverse wave motion.
Yes,
After
sir.
transverse wave motion, we have one more type of wave motion, which is known as longitudinal wave motion. So in longitudinal wave motion, these two things, just one more thing in transverse wave motion. So I'm drawing here a transverse wave, okay? This is a transverse wave. So if your particles are vibrating along y-axis, so if your particle is here, say your particle is here. Sani, can you tell me what is the value of displacement? So here the displacement is 0. Now when particle reach here, then the displacement is maximum, right? We
Yes.
call that displacement as A. And the when the particle is here, this is again maximum but in opposite direction. So this
Yes.
position of the particle where the displacement is maximum is known as crust, and this position of the particle which is minimum is known as trough. Then again the wave motion. This is again the crust, and this is again the trough. So this is crust and this is trough. So a transverse wave always travel in the form of crust on trough. See, this is crust, this is crust, this is crust, this is trough, this is trough, this is trough. If you look at this diagram carefully, you will realize from one crust to another crust, your wave motion is not changing. From one trough to another trough, your wave motion is not changing. Your wave motion remains constant from one crust to another. It remains constant from one trough to another. So your wave motion is not changing from one crust to another, and it's not changing from one trough to another. So you can say your transverse wave motion repeat itself after each crust. The distance between or the separation between the two consecutive crusts is known as wavelength. Similarly, the distance between the two consecutive trough is known as wavelength. So separation between two consecutive crust or trough is wavelength. So this is what we call the wavelength. The separation between two consecutive crust or the separation between two consecutive trough is known as the wavelength. Or in a very simple word, wavelength is the distance, the minimum distance after which wave motion repeat itself. So the minimum distance after which the wave motion repeat itself is known as wavelength. So from one crust to another, the wave motion is repeating. So the minimum distance after which the wave motion repeat itself is known as wavelength. So you can say wavelength is the minimum distance, the minimum distance after which after which wave motion repeat itself. So the minimum motion after which the wave motion repeat itself is known as wavelength. After this transverse wave, the next type of wave is longitudinal wave. See what happened in longitudinal wave. Longitudinal wave motion. In longitudinal wave motion, the direction of displacement of particle of the medium and the direction of displacement of wave is same. In longitudinal wave motion, direction of displacement of particle displacement of wave and oscillation of particle is same. And oscillation of particle is same. So your direction of propagation of wave and the direction of oscillation of particle is same, then you would say that your wave motion is longitudinal. The example of longitudinal wave motion is sound wave. Sound waves are longitudinal waves. So for example, like this is air column. This air column could be a region of your room. Say consider your room where when there is complete silence, there is no speaker, no one is talking in the room, so complete silence. In that case, every air molecule is at its mean position. The separation between all air molecules is same. These are your air molecules. These lines are basically showing your air molecules. So these are your air molecules. These are our air molecules. So these are air molecules. Air molecules. When no sound wave. When there is no sound wave in your system, then your air molecules are at equal separation. But no, in this air column, when sound travels, when the sound start traveling in this air column, so what happens? These air molecules starts oscillating, and here's a region. There comes a region, and in this particular region, the air molecules come close, and then there comes a region where air molecules are at a comparative larger separation. So when sound waves travel through the air column, the air molecule starts vibrating. In a region, the air molecules comes at a smaller distance, and in another region, the air molecules comes at a larger distance. So in one region, the separation between the air molecules decreases. In another region, the separation between the air molecules increases. So in another region, the separation between the air molecules increases and then again decreases. So the region in which air molecules are close, the separation between the air molecules is less. This region is what we call, this is the region what we call compression. This is the region of compression. And this is the region which we call rarefaction. This is compression again, and this is a rarefaction again. So when longitudinal waves travel through a medium, instead of crust and trough, you have compression and rarefaction. Compressions are region where air molecules or the molecules of the medium are close, and rarefaction are those regions where molecules are at a comparative larger distance. So this separation between two consecutive compression is known as wavelength, or the separation between two consecutive rarefaction is known as wavelength. So for longitudinal waves, separation between two consecutive compression or rarefaction is wavelength. The separation between the two consecutive compression or two consecutive rarefaction is what we call wavelength. It's the wavelength definition of wavelength. Okay, now you know wavelength. What is wavelength? For transverse wave, wavelength means the separation between two consecutive crust, and for longitudinal wave, separation between two consecutive compression or rarefaction. But in a very simple language, wavelength is the minimum distance after which the wave motion repeats itself. In general, in general, wavelength is the minimum distance after which wave motion repeat itself. So you can say that wavelength basically shows periodicity in space. Periodicity means it's repeating. So periodicity in space means periodicity in distance is given by wave motion. Say a quantity can repeat in distance as well as time. Periodicity in distance means, say I am giving you some shapes. Sorry. I'm giving you some shapes like this shape, then I gave you some random shapes, then I gave you this shape, then I gave you some random shapes, then I gave you this shape. So I'm asking you after what distance the pattern is repeating. This and this, it's repeating. So it's repeating after this distance, then it is repeating after this distance. So this is periodicity in space. Similarly, you have periodicity in time. Your system can repeat itself after a fixed interval of time. One example of periodicity in time is the day and night. Day and night repeat itself after a fixed interval of time. The season repeat itself after a fixed interval of time. There is no change in space. Space is same. You're sitting in the same room. After a few months, summers came. Then after a few months is again winter. So your space is not changing, the time is changing. So this is periodicity in time. So wavelength shows periodicity in space. Periodicity in space. We represent wavelength by lambda. There is one more thing which shows periodicity in time, and that is frequency. Frequency we have done in oscillation. What do you mean by frequency? Number of oscillations in 1 second. In waves, frequency means number of waves passing through a point in 1 second. Number of waves passing through a point in 1 second is the frequency of wave. Or you can say this frequency basically shows periodicity in space, means your wave motion repeats itself after a fixed interval of time. Let's say the time period of a wave motion, I say it's 0.1 second. That means that wave motion will repeat itself after every 0.1 second. So this shows periodicity in time. Periodicity in time is given by frequency. So there's you must have heard about the definition of wavelength. That wavelength is the length of wave. Now, wave is not a physical entity which you can measure. Wave is the propagation of energy. So what do you mean by the length of the propagation of energy? So that simply means a distance after which that propagation repeat itself. In the same way, frequency means it's showing periodicity in time, that your wave motion is repeating itself after a fixed interval of time. Okay. So next, you can always relate this wavelength and frequency. So you can say that frequency is V into lambda. Not V. V is equal to lambda. You can always write it as V is equal to nu lambda. What is V? V is speed of wave. Speed of wave. What is nu? Nu is frequency. Lambda is wavelength. So this is the relation between wavelength, speed of wave, and frequency. If you know one quantity, then you can do other quantities as well. Okay, a very basic numerical on this, the relation between wavelength, frequency, and speed of wave is uh, wavelength of sound wave traveling with traveling at 300 meter per second is 1000 meter. Calculate its frequency. Give me 1 second. It's not 1000 meter. It's 1 millimeter. Calculate its frequency. Do it. So speed of wave is given. Wavelength is given. You're supposed to calculate frequency. See, V is equal to nu lambda. So you can say that nu is its V by lambda. What is V? V is 300 meter per second. How much is lambda? It's 1 mm. So 1 mm means 10 raised to the power minus 3. So it's 300 into 10 raised to the power 3. So it comes out to be 3 into 10 raised power 5 hertz. Sania, it's mm. Don't forget unit conversion.
Oh, sorry, sir. I
Okay.
did not saw.
So this is frequency, which is 3 into 10 raised to the power 5 hertz. Okay, after this, the next topic is you're supposed to calculate the speed of the wave. We will calculate speed of wave in two ways. First, we will calculate speed of wave in terms of the properties of medium. Say when a wave is traveling through a medium, then the speed of wave should depend on certain parameters of the medium. It can depend upon the density of medium. It can depend upon the tension in the string. It can depend upon the modulus, the bulk modulus, the modulus of elasticity that we have done. So you have to decide on which parameters the speed of a wave depends when a wave travels through a medium. So first starts with speed of transverse wave. Speed of transverse wave. So when a transverse wave travels through a medium, you can divide that medium into two categories. You can calculate the speed of transverse wave in a string when a transverse wave is traveling through a string, or you can calculate speed of a transverse wave when it is traveling through a solid. So this is speed of transverse wave in string. When your wave is traveling through a string, then you can calculate its speed. In string, the speed of transverse wave is given by T by M. See, you are not supposed to derive these expressions. The derivation of these expressions are through dimensional analysis that we have already done when we're doing dimensional analysis. So in waves, no one is asking you to derive this formula, but this formula can be asked in questions of dimensional analysis. If you remember, in dimensional analysis, we have done one application which is derivation of formula. In derivation of formula, this question can be asked. But as far as wave is concerned, no one is asking you how to derive this relation. Just have to remember that V is T by M. Now, what is T? T is tension in the string. T is tension in a string. And here small m is mass per unit length of the string. It's mass per unit length. So you can say small m is mass of string. It's mass of string divided by the length of the string. The ratio of the mass of string and the length of the string is known as is mass per unit length. And remember, its unit is not kg, its unit is kg per meter. It's not mass, it's mass per unit length. So if a transverse wave is passing through a string, then the speed of transverse wave in that string is root over T by M. If instead of string, your transverse wave is passing through a solid, so in a solid, the speed of transverse wave is given by this relation. It's eta divided by rho, where eta is modulus of rigidity. Eta is the modulus of rigidity. Does anyone of you remember what is modulus of rigidity? It's related to what? Modulus of rigidity is related to what? In solids, we have done several types of modulus. Some modulus was related with the change in length. One modulus was related with change in volume. One was related with change in shape.
Temperature.
No, not temperature. In solids, not in thermal. In solids, it's not expansion. It's solid. In solids, you have done three modulus. One was Young's modulus, which was related to the length change in length of the solids. The another was bulk modulus. This was related to the change in volume. Third was modulus of rigidity, which is related to change in shape. This is related to change in shape of the solid. This is related to change in shape. So this is how we calculate the speed of transverse wave in a string or in a solid. First of all, let's do a numerical on this. And rho is the density of solid. And there's one interesting fact that your transverse wave cannot travel through fluids. It cannot travel through liquid or gases. Transverse wave, transverse wave cannot travel, can't travel through liquids, or I am just writing fluid. It cannot travel through fluid. For a transverse wave, you need a system having a definite shape. Since liquid and gases does not have a definite shape, so your transverse wave cannot travel through liquid and gases. It can only travel through a string or a solid object. See, in a sonometer experiment, okay, solve it. See, I'm just giving you a hint. Instead of force, pressure is given, means force upon area is given, and instead of mass per unit length, density is given. So somehow this is the expression, root over T by M. Somehow you have to express this expression in terms of pressure and volume. Try it. You can use this hint that volume is area multiplied by length. And you can use this fact that mass is mass by length basically. The small m is m by L only. A two-line calculation, bhai. V is root over, uh, not exactly, Sania. It's root over T by M. Huh? So what one can do is, instead of small m, just write it's m by L only, mass into length. Then what you can do is, you can just multiply numerator and denominator with the area. Denominator with the area and also numerator with the area. Then what you get is, its tension by area is pressure divided by mass, length into area is volume. So I'm writing this thing here. Tension by area is pressure, length into area of cross section is volume. So the speed is root over its P by rho. So this is the speed of transverse wave, which is pressure divided by the density. So if I substitute these values, pressure is given. How much is pressure? Pressure is this. Pressure is this, 3 into 10 raised power 8. This is density, which is 7.5 into 10 raised power 3. So this is V, which is root over 3 into 10 raised power 5 divided by 7.5. So this is your velocity. So if I try to solve it, 3 by 7.5 into 10 raised power 5. So this V is root over 30 by 7.5 into 10 raised power 4. If I take it outside root, is still 2. How much is 30 by 7.5? That's 4 into 10 raised power 2. So that comes out to be 200 meter per second. So this is the speed of transverse wave in this string, which is root over 200. This is 200 meter per second. Next, let's see the speed of. Before starting this speed of longitudinal wave, just recall, if the volume of the medium changes, say somehow you are changing the volume of the medium. You take a ball, you start pressing the ball, the volume of the ball is changing. Then which modulus will you use if you're changing the volume?
Bulk modulus.
Bulk modulus. So when a longitudinal wave travels through a medium, longitudinal wave change the volume of the medium. When the longitudinal waves are traveling through air column, we have done compression and rarefaction, right? When a longitudinal wave is traveling, either it's compressing or it's rarefacting. So either the volume is decreasing or it's increasing. So there is change in volume. So for that change in volume, you need bulk modulus. So when we do speed of longitudinal waves, first we do speed of longitudinal wave in a fluid. When a longitudinal wave travels in a fluid, like sound waves are traveling through air, then they change the volume of the air column. They compress it, that's known as compression. They increase the volume, which we say rarefaction. The modulus that you will use for change in volume is bulk modulus. So you would say the speed is its root over its bulk modulus divided by rho. That's bulk modulus. Few authors will represent B's bulk modulus. Few authors will represent bulk modulus by small k. That's the same thing. It's just the change in notation, nothing else. Either you represent bulk modulus by k or bulk modulus by b. That is the same thing. And rho obviously is the density of fluid. Rho is the density of fluid. But if your longitudinal wave is traveling through a rod, then rod means it's one dimensional. When I say rod, that means one dimensional solid. Rod means a one dimensional solid. So in one dimensional, there is only length. Its volume cannot change. For one dimensional, there is no volume. Volume is for three-dimensional object. If you have a one-dimensional volume, then it's only its length can change. So when a longitudinal wave passes through a one-dimensional object, its length will change. And if its length is changing, which modulus would you use? Yes, which modulus
Young's
will you use if
modulus.
the length is changes, right? Young's
Young's
modulus.
modulus.
So we'll write this as y by rho. Y is the Young's modulus. Okay, just tell me one more thing. If this longitudinal wave is traveling through a solid object, if it is traveling through a solid object, then what will happen? Is it possible to change the volume of a solid without changing its shape?
No.
If you
No,
take a
sir.
solid and you try to changing its volume, then obviously its shape will change. Its shape will not remain constant. So if you have a solid object, then your V is its root over its b plus 4 by 3 eta. Although you will not use speed of longitudinal waves in solids, it's b plus 4 by 3 eta, where b is the bulk modulus. It is the bulk modulus. And eta is the modulus of rigidity. It's due to the fact that whenever the volume of the solid will change, its shape may change. So to consider that change in shape, we use eta. Eta is known as modulus of rigidity. This is what we call as the modulus of rigidity. So this is how we calculate speed of longitudinal waves. Okay, now let's do Newton's formula. Newton's formula for speed of sound in air. Speed of sound in air. Okay, just tell me. To calculate speed of sound in air, out of these relations, which relation would you use? You have five relations. One, two, you have relation number three, you have relation number four, and you have relation number five. Which relation will you use to calculate speed of sound in air?
So 3.
Three, okay. And sound waves are not transverse waves, sound waves are longitudinal waves. So you will use this relation. Sound longitudinal waves, sound waves through air means longitudinal waves through fluid. You will use this relation. Not this one, neither this one. Okay, so you need a relation between pressure basically. You want something in terms of pressure. So for a speed of sound in air, you know that this is the relation. V is root over B by rho. That's my first equation. Where rho is density of air. Where rho is density of air. B is bulk modulus of air. Bulk modulus of air. So if you can remember that bulk modulus is change in pressure by change in volume by original volume. This was the expression for bulk modulus which we have done in solids. This negative sign simply says that this is compressing, the volume of the solid is decreasing. So you can say that the bulk modulus is minus of V multiplied by dP by dV. This is the bulk modulus, minus V dP over d. So this is my first equation. V is root over B by rho. And this is a bulk modulus, which is equation number 2. So what Newton did is, Newton tried to express this thing in terms of pressure. He tries to express this bulk modulus in terms of pressure. So to convert this bulk modulus into pressure, Newton says when sound waves travels through air, then air compressed means something somewhere there is compression and there it is rarefaction, means the volume and the pressure of air is changing. When the volume and the pressure of the air changes, that means there's some sort of process. And when you go to thermodynamics, you have 3 or 4 types of process. You either have adiabatic process, you have isothermal process, you can have isobaric process, or you can have isochoric process. So Newton says when sound waves travels through air, travels through air, its pressure and volume changes. Its pressure and volume changes, which is a thermodynamic process. This is the thermodynamic process. If pressure and volume of a system is changing, then you would say that this system is in some sort of thermodynamic process. Newton argued, or Newton proposed that this process is isothermal. Newton proposed that this process is an isothermal process. Basically, Newton doesn't have any exact expression why the process should be isothermal. He doesn't have any explanation. He just assumed that the process is isothermal. And he take the equation of isothermal process. Equation of isothermal process. This equation I am taking from chemistry. This is the equation of isothermal process. PV equal to constant. This is the equation of isothermal process. From this equation, you have to calculate this thing minus V dP by dV. So to calculate dP by dV from this equation, what one can do is we can just differentiate this equation. But see, both P and V are variables. When a sound wave is traveling through air, its pressure is changing as well as its volume is changing. Both the terms are changing, pressure as well as volume. So both are variable. Pressure is a variable as well as the volume is a variable. So when you have two variables in an equation and you differentiate them, then we use a chain product rule basically. So I have to differentiate this equation. Consider P as constant and differentiate V. So I hope you remember differentiation. D over dx of x is 1. It's x to the power 1. Right? It's 1 into x to the power 1 minus 1. That you can write as 1 into x to the power 0 is 1. So I hope you remember differentiation. So P is constant. I take this constant away. Then I differentiate this V. The derivative of V is 1. Now, since it's a partial derivative, we have two different variables. So for partial derivative, what we do is when you differentiate V, put a dV here. Then again product rule. Now you have earlier considered this P as constant. Now consider this V as constant and differentiate P. The derivative of P is 1. Then this is dP is equal to 0. It's P dV plus V dP is equal to 0. So if this is the equation PV equal to constant, take this P as a constant outside, differentiate V, which is 1 into dV, plus then you can consider this V as a constant, differentiate P, its derivative is 1. Since this is partial derivative, so when you are differentiating P, you will write a dP here. When you are differentiating V, you will write a dV here. This is basically partial differentiation. Differentiation in which you simultaneously differentiate many variables. So next what you can do is you can write that PdV is minus of VdP, or you need dP by dV. Huh? So from here you can say that your dP by dV is minus of P by V now. I call this as equation number 3. This is the only step in this derivation which can be an issue for it. So next what we can do is we can substitute 3 in 2. Now when we substitute 3 in 2, what we get is bulk modulus is it's minus of V, it's dP by dV. So dP by dV is minus of P by V. It's minus P by V. So this V will cancel this V. You will get that your bulk modulus is equal to pressure. So when I substitute these values, I call this as equation number 4. Now you know that V is B by rho. Now you have calculated the value of bulk modulus. So I can substitute the value of B here. So that's equation number 4. So if I substitute 4 in 1, what I get is, I get V is root over P by rho. P by rho. This is V is root over P divided by rho. This is according to Newton's formula. Now, after getting this expression, Newton tries to calculate the speed of air at STP. Speed of air at STP. How much is the pressure at STP? Yes, how much is the pressure at STP? Standard temperature and pressure. What is the standard pressure?
What?
1 atm. 1.01 into 10 raised to the power of 5 pascals. And the density of air is 1.29 kg per meter cube. Now, next what we can do is, we can substitute all these values here, where V is root over 1.01 into 10 raised power 5 by 1.29. Now, if this formula is correct, then the speed of the sound that we get from this expression should match with the speed that we measure in experiment. I'm repeating again, if this formula is correct, then the speed that you are getting from this formula at STP, speed of sound in air, should match with the speed that we measure experimentally. But what happens is, when we calculate this thing, speed of sound in this through this formula, it comes out to be 280 meter per second. But speed of sound in air measured experimentally is around 330 meter per second. This is the theoretically calculated value. This is the value of speed of sound which this Newton's formula tells. But this is the speed of sound in air measured experimentally is 330 meter per second. So there is huge difference. Newton's formula says it should be 280, but experiment says this is 330 meter per second. So this difference in theoretically calculated value and experimentally measured value shows that Newton's formula is incorrect. This shows that Newton's formula is incorrect. So that was Newton's formula which was incorrect. Then after Newton, Laplace came. This is known as Laplace correction. Laplace makes some correction in this formula. Laplace says when sound travels through air, the thermodynamic process is not isothermal. The thermodynamic process is adiabatic. He gives some evidence for this statement. He says that, first of all, air is not conducting, air is non-conducting, air is insulating. So for an insulating medium, the process is adiabatic. Second, he says when the sound passes through air, the process is very fast. Usually the fast process are adiabatic. Fast processes are not isothermal. Isothermal processes are very slow process, like the melting of ice. the conversion of water into steam, the condensation of steam. These are slow process. These process takes time. Slow process are isothermal, but when the sound travels through air is a very fast process. That can't be isothermal. That should be adiabatic. So Laplace proposed that propagation of sound through air is adiabatic. He also gave reasons for this proposal because first, air is non-conducting. Second, when sound travel through air, when sound travels through air, process is fast. Process is very fast. So it should be an adiabatic process. Then he repeated all steps which were done by Newton, just one assumption, which is it's an adiabatic process, not an isothermal process. So from the first equation, you know that speed, the formula for speed of sound is this, V is B by rho. You know that B is minus of V dP by dV. Same steps as just last calculation. Next, the equation of adiabatic process is not PV equal to constant. Equation of adiabatic process is PV to the power gamma equal to constant. This is the equation of adiabatic process. Again, you have to differentiate this equation and get the value of this. Gamma is constant. Say it's a constant for all type of gases. For different gases, this constant have different values. If you know in chemistry, you must have heard about the specific heat at constant pressure and specific heat at constant volume. So this gamma is basically the ratio of the specific heat at constant pressure and specific heat at constant volume. This we will do in kinetic theory of gases. This we will do when we do kinetic theory of gases. That's equation number 3. Now, so to get this dP by dV, I am differentiating equation number 3. I am differentiating this equation number 3. When we differentiate this equation number 3, this comes out P is constant. When we differentiate V to the power gamma, this is gamma V to the power gamma minus 1. Now again, since this is a partial derivative, I am putting a dV here. In the next step, I am taking this V to the power gamma as a constant. I am differentiating this P. The derivative of P is 1. I am putting dP here just due to the fact that this differentiation is partial and the derivative of constant is 0. So what I am left with is gamma P V to the power gamma minus 1 into dV is plus V to the power gamma into dP is equal to 0. Remember, I need this value dP by dV. So I'm taking this to the right hand side, or I'm taking this to the right hand side. V to the power gamma dP is minus of gamma P V to the power gamma minus 1 into dV. Next, what we can do is we can write dP over dV is minus gamma P V to the power gamma minus 1 divided by V to the power gamma. V to the power gamma. So I can write that this dP by dV is minus of gamma P, it's V. Well, I'm subtracting the powers here. So if I divide V to the power gamma, okay, let's write this and you better. This is V to the power gamma minus 1 minus gamma. You're dividing V to the power gamma minus 1 by V to the power gamma. So power will subtract. This will cancel this thing. And you are left with only that dp by dv is minus gamma p v to the power minus 1. So you can write that your dp by dv is minus gamma p by v now. That's my equation number 3. V to the power minus 1 can be written as 1 by v. Now if I substitute this here, so this is 3, that should be 4. I substitute 4 into. So this should be equation number 4. This is 4. So if I substitute 4 into, what I get is b is minus v dp by dv. B is minus v dp by dv, which is minus of gamma p by v. So this v will cancel this v, and you will get that bulk modulus is gamma into p. That's equation number 5. Next, what you can do is you can substitute 5 in 1. When you substitute 5 in 1, you will get v is root over gamma p by rho. So the difference between the Newton's formula and the Laplace formula is that of this gamma. Newton's formula says that the speed of sound is just p by rho, which is actually wrong. It gives errors. But Laplace formula says this is gamma p by rho. So let's calculate the speed of sound at STP. At STP, your pressure is 1.01 into 10 raised to the power 5 pascals. Your density is 1.29 kg per meter cube. And your gamma, how much is your gamma? Your gamma is 7 by 5. For air, this gamma is 7 by 5. Now, when we substitute all these values here, like that of gamma, which is 7 by 5, and this pressure, how much is this pressure? 1.01 into 10 raised power 5 divided by density, which is 1.29. When you solve this, you get it's around 331 meter per second, which match with experiments. Which perfectly match with experiments. So Laplace was correct, which perfectly match with experiments. Which perfectly match with experiments. So now you can say that Newton was wrong for calculating the speed of sound in air. His assumption that when the sound travels through air, the process should be isothermal. This assumption is wrong. Actually, when sound travels through air, the process is adiabatic. It's not isothermal, it's an adiabatic process. So this is the correct formula for calculating speed of sound in air, which was given by Laplace, which is known as root over gamma p by rho. Okay. Now, after this, so you know when sound travels through air, the equation for its speed is this, gamma p by rho. Now you have to discuss what are the factors which can affect the speed of light in air, speed of sound in air. When the sound is traveling through air, then what different factors can affect this speed? Factors like pressure. If you change pressure, what will happen to the speed of sound? When you change the density, like sound is traveling through different types of gases, traveling through hydrogen, it's traveling through oxygen, it's traveling through nitrogen. If you keep on changing the gases, what will happen with the speed of the sound? Also, you can calculate the effect of temperature. When you increase temperature, what happened with the speed of sound? So these are some 1 marker, 2 marker questions that I am doing in theory. Factors affecting the speed of sound. Factors affecting the speed of sound in air. So various factors which can affect the speed of sound in air are, the first factor is pressure. Let's see how pressure affects the speed of sound. So this is the expression of speed of sound in air. It's gamma p by rho. So it's a very common mistake that people write speed is directly proportional to pressure. So if I increase pressure, then speed will increase. That's wrong. Because density also depends upon pressure. If you change pressure, then density of gas will change. So to get the exact relation, let's see. This is the ideal gas equation, PV equal to nRT. If I am saying that only pressure is changing, temperature is constant. This is ideal gas equation. Huh? Ideal gas equation. So I'm writing it, I'm saying it again. It's a very common mistake that students write V is directly proportional to P. See here, V and P are directly proportional, that if I increase pressure, then speed will change. This is incorrect. This is wrong. Because along with pressure, you have density. Density also depends upon pressure. If you change pressure, density will change. So it's a wrong analysis. If you write, keep on increasing pressure, the speed will increase. So this is ideal gas equation. You can write that temperature equal to constant. If temperature is constant, you can say that PV is equal to constant. If PV equal to constant, then we can convert this V in terms of mass and density. See, density is mass by volume, right? So you can write volume as mass by density. So that's mass of the gas divided by the density of the gas, which is constant. So you can say that P by rho is some constant divided by the mass of the gas. This is a known fact that mass will not change. Mass of the gas is not changing. Molar mass will not change. So you can say that P by rho is constant. So that's interesting. Means if you change pressure, then density will change in a way that P by rho becomes constant. If you're increasing pressure, then density will also increase in the same ratio so that P by rho becomes constant. So if P by rho is constant and your V is root over gamma P by rho, then you would say that V is equal to constant, which means on changing pressure, speed does not change. When you change pressure of gas, the speed of sound does not change, because when you change pressure, density will increase in the same ratio. So it does not let speed to change. Speed cannot change. Second is the density of gas. What happens if you are using different gases? So this is the expression in terms of density, na? Root over gamma P by rho. If I'm saying that pressure equal to constant, I'm taking different gases, hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, nitrogen, different gases. At the same pressure, I have maintained a constant atmospheric pressure. Then you can see that V is inversely proportional to density. So if you take a gas having low density, then its speed of sound will be high in that case. So you can say that speed of sound is inversely proportional to the density of gas. This is inversely proportional to the density of gas. This is how speed of sound change with the gas. Third one. After density of gas, the next thing is, so what we have done till now, we have done this change in speed with pressure, with density. Third is with temperature, with humidity. Okay, can you tell me the density of which air is higher, the density of dry air or the density of humid air? Humidity means some water molecules are into the air.
humid air,
Humid.
Dry air. It's because humid air does not have water molecules. Humid air have water vapors, and the density of water vapor is very less. See, the density of dry air is 1.29 kg per meter cube. Density of water vapor, which is humidity, density of water vapor is 0.8 kg per meter cube. So when you mix this water vapor with the dry air, the density of humid air decreases. It's 0.8 only. The density of water is 1000. But in humid air, you're not mixing water. What you are mixing is water vapor. So density will drastically decrease. Density will decrease. So you can say that speed is root over its gamma p by rho. So since V is inversely proportional to rho, so speed of sound in dry air is less than the speed of sound in humid air. Means in monsoon, sound travels at a higher speed in air than in summers. Next, what we can check is the effect of temperature. This is the expression of speed of sound. V is gamma p by rho, right? So what we can do is we can write PV is equal to nRT. We can write P is equal to nRT by V. If I substitute it here, these all are 1 marker or 2 marker questions from this topic. It's gamma by rho multiplied by P, and how much is P? It's nRT by V. P is nRT by V. What is volume multiplied by density?
Mass.
Mass. So see, gamma, n, r, m, all are constant. V is directly proportional to in root t. Means if you increase temperature, then the speed of sound will increase. Speed of sound increase on increasing temperature. There's one more thing, the speed of wind. Wind can also affect the speed of sound. See, if air is blowing in the direction of speed of sound, if wind blows in direction of speed of sound, direction of sound, then speed of sound increases. Speed of sound increases. So you can say that the speed of sound is equal to speed of sound in still air plus speed of wind, speed of sound in wind. But if wind is moving in a direction, blows in a direction opposite to that of sound, if wind blows in a direction opposite to sound, then speed of sound decreases. So you can say that speed of sound in wind is equal to speed of sound in still air minus speed of wind. So wind also affects the speed of sound. So these are the parameters which can affect the speed of sound in a medium. So that was about the speed of sound wave in medium. That was the first part of wave. The next part is equation of wave. We will calculate the equation of wave the way we have calculated the equation of SHM. We have derived the equation of SHM, but the derivation of equation of wave is not a part of the syllabus. We will directly start with the equation only. Then we will do the speed of wave. Then we will do the acceleration of the wave. Before starting the equation of wave, just see some terms used very commonly in wave. The first one is progressive or traveling wave. As the name suggests, this progressive or traveling wave simply means it's a wave which is traveling from one point to another. If a wave is traveling from one to another point, then you call this as progressive or traveling wave. So progressive or traveling wave means it's a wave which is traveling from one point to another, from one point to another. So wave which travel from one point to another is known as progressive or traveling wave. So just like sound wave travels from one point to another. So they're an example of progressive or traveling wave. Light waves, they travel from one point to another. They're an example of progressive or traveling wave. Wave in a string, it travels from one point to another, is a traveling wave. Then you have progressive harmonic wave, or you can simply say harmonic wave. Now, since we are doing mechanical waves, so when a wave travels through a medium, then the particles of the medium oscillates. So if the particles of the medium are oscillating simple harmonically, then you would say that the wave is progressive harmonic wave. I'm repeating again. When the wave travels through a medium, the particles of the medium oscillate simple harmonically. If the medium particles are oscillating symbol harmonically, then you will say the wave is harmonic, otherwise not. So in our syllabus, we just have to study harmonic waves only. You don't need to study non-harmonic waves. So waves in which particles of medium oscillates simple harmonically. Now I need equation of harmonic progressive wave. See, the equation of an harmonic progressive wave is this: y is a sine omega t minus of kx plus phi naught. This is the equation of a harmonic progressive wave. You can even write this equation in terms of cos. In SHM, we have seen that sine and cos are just differ by a phase difference of pi by 2 only. You can use sine or cos both in your equations. So this is omega t minus kx plus phi naught. Now, since NCRT have concentrated on the sine equation, so I'm just do everything with the sine equation, but everything that I do with the sine equation is even possible with the cos one. Just this phi naught will change. So I'm not doing calculations using the cos equation. I'm following NCRT, so I will just do with the sine equation. So let's see the meaning of each and every single term. Y is a sine kx minus omega t plus. So to understand the meaning of each and every term, so I'm drawing a wave here. Let's draw a wave. This is the string. Initially, all particles were at mean position. This red shows particles. All particles were at mean position. Then you do something, you provide a jerk, a wave develop in this way. when this wave comes. So earlier, all the particles were on the mean position. These were the initial positions. Now, when this wave travels, some particles come here, some particles come here, some come here, another come here, another came here, another came here. So this is how the particles distributed. Say your wave travels from here to here, your wave travel along x-axis, but the particles of the medium travels along, not along x-axis, they travel along y-axis. This particle travel from here to here, this travel from here to here, this travel from here to here, this travel the maximum distance, this travels the maximum distance. The particle travels along y-axis and the wave travels along x-axis. So this y here, this is basically the displacement of the particles of the medium from the mean position. This y is known as displacement of particles of medium from mean position. Of medium from mean position. This is y. Then you have a amplitude. Amplitude means maximum displacement. Maximum value of displacement. Then you have other terms like this whole term, this whole. Just like SHM, this whole term is known as phase. So here A is the maximum value of Y. This maximum value is amplitude. This maximum value is amplitude. It's not amplitude. It's not amplitude. This is the amplitude. The maximum value is of Y is amplitude. This term K is known as angular wave number. This K is known as angular wave number. This is basically related with the wavelength. It's 2 pi over lambda. So if you have angular wave number, that means you have lambda, you have wavelength. Its SI unit is radian per meter. It's radian per meter. Then omega here. This you know from your SHM. This omega is angular frequency. This is angular frequency. And this phi naught is initial phase constant. This tells the state of the wave at t equal to 0. All other terms have same meaning as it were in SHM. Initial phase constant. And one more interesting thing, this negative sign here shows, and this x here. This x basically shows the direction of propagation of wave. Your wave is traveling along x-axis, that is given by this term. This shows direction of propagation of wave. This x here is the direction of propagation of the wave. Okay, there's one more thing. This negative sign here shows that wave is traveling along positive x-axis. So if I write this equation as a sine kx minus omega t plus phi naught. This negative sign shows that wave is traveling along positive x-axis. Where is negative, that means wave is traveling along positive x-axis. If I write this as a sine kx plus omega t plus phi naught plus phi naught, then this positive sign will show that wave is traveling along the negative x-axis. Negative x-axis. Solve this numerical. For the first part, the amplitude is 20 meter. For the second part, you need wavelength. Huh? This is K, right? K is 10 radian per meter. You know that your K is 2 pi by lambda, so it's 10. You can write that your lambda is now 2 pi by 10. So it's basically pi by 5 meter. Or you can say this is 3.14 by 5 meter. That's your width. Similarly, instead of omega, you have 5. Omega is angular frequency. Omega is 5 radian per second. Once you have omega, you can also calculate nu frequency. Your omega is 2 pi nu. So if your omega is 5 is 2 pi nu, you can write that your nu is 5 over 2 pi. So your frequency is 5 by 2 into 3.14 hertz. Now, if I ask you to calculate the speed of wave is just nu multiplied by lambda. You have nu, you have lambda, just multiply them and get the value of V. So you can also write that your V is nu into lambda. You can also calculate the speed of the wave. This is speed of the wave. The speed with which your wave is traveling is nu into lambda.